And then the main event was Pacquiao and Ugas. Yordenis Ugas winning a unanimous decision over Manny Pacquiao. I don't entirely remember how I scored the fight. I thought the fight was really close. I didn't have a problem with the decision necessarily. Just breaking down the fight, I felt like Ugas's jab and his very defensive glove up style, and then the height, I think it just bothered Pacquiao's rhythm. And like Manny said, I think Manny was having problems with his legs. I think his legs were cramping a little bit. I think he looked less mobile. And so against somebody with Ugas's style, he's not going to give you a lot of openings. He's a very smart fighter, very, shelled up and defensive, smart counterpuncher, knows his range. He's not going to, there's no gimmies. There's no freebies with Ugas. So somebody like Manny has to create that with his foot movement and his hand speed and his combinations, and the foot mobility for me wasn't really there. I think he could feel that. And he's still got fast hands. It still looks like he's got some pop, but there were times where he was trying to throw like a Manny Pacquiao combination, and it was almost like he stalled out a little bit, or it just like it wasn't as reflexive. I think one of the things that has always been so special about Manny is that it has always looked pretty effortless. His hand speed and just the way he moves, and the unorthodox foot movement, whatever, it's just always looked pretty effortless for him. It never looks like he has to really exert himself to get to that. And this fight, it looked like he had to exert himself a lot. It looked like he had to really push himself to get what he got. And it wasn't, I'm not saying he looks completely shot. You know what I'm saying? But I think this is the first time where we for real seen his skills take a step down. I would say any time before this, it was either like mental changes but I've never felt like his hand speed or his actual skills had eroded at all in a meaningful way. The loss to Marquez was 9 years ago, and he's just kept coming back and kept winning, and sometimes he loses, but then he wins after that. And even in the Thurman fight, so a couple of points about the Thurman fight. I felt like in the Thurman fight, his skills were still there completely, and that was why he won the fight, was able to drop Keith. But that was definitely the most physical fight he's had in a long time. Keith really hit him in that fight, particularly in the second half. And I always wondered how a fight like that affects a 40-year-old. And then a 40-year-old that doesn't fight for 2 years. I mean, I'm sure the rest was good, but I think like a fight that physical had to, at 40 with a big, strong, in his prime welterweight, I have to imagine that affected him. To be honest, I think that may have been part of him. This is just my opinion, but I think that may have been part of, him having that one little hit of decline, that and the layoff. Because I think taking a layoff as an older fighter is good, but I don't think 2 years, that's a long time. That's a long time. And it's a long time to do it against this guy. And it's a long time to do it against this guy when you're not preparing for this guy. He was preparing for Errol Spence. It's a completely different style. Spence is much more aggressive than Ugas. I think he's arguably the best welterweight in the world, but he probably is more available to be hit than Ugas. So he's just, he's preparing for a whole different style of fighter. And when you're not preparing for somebody as good as Ugas at this age with the layoff, and your last fight was really physical, I just think that And it's not making excuses, but I think that those three things at his age were not in his favor. And I think that Ugas is really peaking a little bit. I think his skill set and his level is peaking. I think he's hitting his prime a little bit. And I was really impressed with Ugas's game too, because there were some things that Manny was doing well. There were times where Manny was throwing really nice combinations. You could see Ugas's face was very swollen at the end of the fight. It wasn't as if Manny was completely ineffective. But Ugas, his jab and his defense put Pacquiao in this position where he had to initiate a lot of it, and Ugas's timing was just perfect. I mean, he always had a jab or a hard right hand for him. You know, he could fight on the inside with him. He was much taller, much bigger. And I think he, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me about this, but there's an argument that he's the number one welterweight right now. And the argument is that Crawford or Spence, neither of them, have a win remotely this significant. There's nobody in the welterweight division, at the top of the welterweight division right now, that has a win this significant. And that would be my argument for Ugas being number one. Give me a win that Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Thurman, any of them have that's as significant as this. I don't think there's any. Now, then there's the counter argument of who's been sustained better over time, but I think this is by far the best, most meaningful win that any welterweight has had in a bit. Like maybe since Pacquiao beat Thurman, to be honest with you. So I think that Ugas should get whatever the fuck fight he wants from here. I think he deserves it, man. I think he deserves a fight with Spence or with Crawford or with whoever he wants. He wants a rematch with Porter. I think he should get it. You know, I think that this guy is absolutely one of the best welterweights in the world and one of the best fighters in the world. And I'm excited, and I've been saying that for a hot minute. I've been saying that this guy is so slept on for a hot minute. And now people are really getting to see it. And he wasn't even supposed to get this fight. He just got the opportunity because he was on the undercard, but he wasn't supposed to get this fight. It's an amazing story, man. It's an amazing story. So, I mean, big up to Yordenis Ugas for having the best win at welterweight, I think. By far. Of any of these guys right now.